Senator Cruz, Director Christensen, ladies and gentlemen, and media corps, good evening. I'm delighted to be able to welcome Senator Ted Cruz and his delegation to visit Taiwan. Senator Cruz has been one of the most outspoken supporters of Taiwan on the Capitol Hill. And every time there's a need for Taiwan to get support from the United States, Senator Cruz is always there. And for that, the people of Taiwan would like to express our appreciation to you. And I also want to put it on the record that you are the first one in 35 years to be able to come to our National Day, the first senator to be able to do that. And I think our National Day celebration is going to be brightened by your presence. And I just want to express my appreciation to you for coming to Taiwan, want to express my appreciation to you for speaking out on Taiwan in every occasion. And I would like to give the floor to our dear Senator, Senator Cruz.
Well, Foreign Minister Wu, thank you very much for the kind hospitality. I want to thank the Taiwanese people for welcoming me here. I am honored to be here with you today. I'm particularly honored tomorrow to have the chance to join you at the celebration of National Day, the 10-10 celebration. And this is a time when Taiwan's celebration is particularly important. This is a time where the repression of the communist government in China has gotten worse. This is a time when the eyes of the world are focused on Hong Kong, and the people of Hong Kong demonstrating courage, standing up for democracy, standing up for freedom. And I want to commend Foreign Minister Wu for your clarity in speaking up for the rights of the men and women of Hong Kong and for the rights of democracy. Democracy matters, human rights matters, and I'm in Taiwan because Taiwan recognizes the human rights of its citizens. Taiwan is built as a democracy. And the friendship between the United States and Taiwan is incredibly important. That's demonstrated by just how hard the communist government in China works to try to undermine Taiwan. Since 2016, we've seen a number of Taiwan's diplomatic allies severing ties with Taiwan, including Kiribati and Solomon Islands. Last year, El Salvador, Burkina Faso, the Dominican Republic. All of those have done so because the Communist Party in China relies on economic coercion, incentives, and in some cases, effectively economic blackmail to entice or coerce allies to move away from Taiwan. Well, I'll tell you this, the United States is not moving away. The United States is proud to stand with the people of Taiwan. And indeed, I'm a co-sponsor of the Taipei Act in the Senate that just passed unanimously in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, with every Republican and every Democrat supporting it, underscoring that America stands with the people of Taiwan and that we also will stand up against these Chinese efforts to undermine Taiwan. This is a friendship that is incredibly important. This is a military relationship that is incredibly important. This is an economic relationship that is incredibly important. And these are peoples, the American people and the Taiwanese people, that are friends, that are allies, and I'm proud to join you for the celebration tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Reinald. If the senators allows and the minister allow, we take a couple of questions from the audience. Sure. So questions, do you have questions from the audience? I know that, okay, so yes, okay, we start with Central News Agency and then followed by Lady behind, yes. Elaine, Central News Agency. You can ask question in English or in Mandarin, whichever translator, yes.
Hi, Senator. This is Elaine Ho from Taiwan Central News Agency. I have two questions for you. The first one is, how would you describe your visit at this time to Taiwan? And the second one is that, in your view, what should the U.S. do more to help Taiwan in consolidate its relationship with its diplomatic allies, in addition to holding like meetings like the new one is called Pacific Island meetings. Besides that, thank you.
Well, my visit is part of a broader Indo-Pacific tour in which I'm engaged. And so a couple of days ago, I began in Hawaii meeting with the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command and the Pacific Fleet and receiving extensive military briefings on the threats throughout the Indo-Pacific region, but in particular, the growing military buildup we're seeing in China and the increased aggressiveness and how we and our allies need to respond together to that growing threat. From there, I flew to Japan. Yesterday I met with Prime Minister Abe. Had a very positive meeting with Prime Minister Abe in Japan, discussing once again both diplomatic and military shared interests and also economic interests in trade. Today, I'm here in Taiwan, and then tomorrow we'll be continuing to India and ultimately to Hong Kong. This is a tour that was very much conceived as a friends and allies tour, as a tour of friends and allies that stand with America and that are all dealing from different perspectives with a more assertive, a more aggressive communist China. And in terms of what America should be doing, one of the things I would very much like to see is a free trade agreement between the United States and Taiwan. That is something I have long urged. Taiwan is America's 11th largest trading partner. Last year alone, we traded over $94 billion in goods and services between our two countries. That's good for Taiwan. That's good for America. I'd like to see those numbers grow even more. And in addition to that, Taiwan has extensive investment in the United States. That creates jobs in America. America has extensive investment in Taiwan. That creates jobs here. That's mutually beneficial. I'd like to see that trade. I'd like to see that investment grow. And beyond that, our military alliance is very important. I, for a long time, have urged the United States government to approve the sales of advanced F-16 fighters to Taiwan. I was very pleased that President Trump and the Trump administration recently approved those sales. I think that is important for helping Taiwan be in a position to defend itself and to defend itself alongside its friends and allies, including the United States.
Thank you very much, Senator. I know there was one question. Yes, the lady first, and then Kyoto News. You later. Yes. Your name and media affiliation, please.
Yes, I'm Janice from NTD TV. So you mentioned that Hong Kong people are brave to tell the truth, and they are standing before the Brandenburg gas right now. So do you see the same encourage in Taiwanese people? So how will this action of these Taiwanese affect China?
Very much so. The eyes of the world are fixated right now upon protesters in the streets of Hong Kong, risking their lives because they seek freedom. We've seen the power of peaceful protest. We've seen the power of peaceful protest to change the world. It's one of the reasons Taiwan is so incredibly important, not just to the Asian Pacific region, but to the entire world, because Taiwan's very existence, the creation of Taiwan, is standing up to communist oppression, is standing in opposition to a tyrannical communist government. My own family's from Cuba. My family has been imprisoned and tortured in Cuban prisons. When it comes to communist oppression, for me and my family, that's not a theoretical or abstract concept. It is something that we have seen up close and personal. It's something the people of Taiwan understand up close and personal. It's something the people of Hong Kong understand up close and personal. And there is an enormous power to speaking the truth. You know, often dictatorships are portrayed as strong and mighty and unshakable. And yet their conduct illustrates that they are much more vulnerable than they portray. In my office, the United States Senate, the dominant feature in that office is an enormous painting of President Ronald Reagan standing before the Brandenburg Gate. Your question referenced the Brandenburg Gate, and painted in that painting above it are the words, "Tear down this wall," in German in the style of the graffiti on the wall. You know, many people don't know the backstory of that speech. 3 times, the U.S. State Department removed those words from that speech. And they argued to the president, "Mr. President, you can't say this. Saying this would be too belligerent. It would be too hostile. And most importantly," this was State Department's main argument, "it would be unrealistic. The Berlin Wall will never, ever, ever fall." And 3 times, Reagan, with his own hand, wrote those words back into the speech. And he said with a smile and a twinkle in his eye, "You don't understand. This is the entire point of the speech." Less than 3 years after President Reagan stood before the Brandenburg Gate and said, "Mr. Gorbachev, if you seek peace, tear down this wall," that wall was torn to the ground, and importantly, it wasn't torn down by U.S. Army tanks. It wasn't torn down by missiles. It was torn down by the power of ideas, by the power of freedom. That's why Taiwan is so important. That's why the people of Hong Kong are so important, because the idea of freedom, the Chinese Communist government is terrified that the Chinese people will see, how come the people of Taiwan enjoy freedom, enjoy democracy, and we don't? That they will see in Hong Kong, wait a second, why can't we have that same freedom? That's why the Chinese government acts with such fear. And that's why it's so important for America and the rest of the world to stand alongside Taiwan.
Very true. Thank you so very much, Senator. We have a question from Kyoto News, and then followed by Hong Kong TV, and then later from United Daily News. Yeah, Kyoto News first.
Yes, Mr. Senator Shulin Ko, Kyoto News. I also have 2 questions. The first one is that Taiwan lost 2 diplomatic allies in the Pacific last month. Why is this a matter of concern for the United States? Because some Taiwanese think that it's a good way to save money. And my second question is that the U.S. Congress has passed various bills supporting Taiwan, and Taiwan is grateful for it. Given President Trump's decision to abandon its longtime ally, the Kurds, in northern Iraq, why should any country, including Taiwan, trust in the U.S. support? Thank you.
Well, let me say, with regard to the diplomatic allies who have recently severed ties with Taiwan, the question of why is that important, you can ask, why does the Communist government of China spend millions of dollars trying to make that happen? If it didn't matter, they wouldn't spend so much money trying to entice that behavior. The Communist government in China is terrified of freedom and democracy in Taiwan, of freedom and democracy in Hong Kong. And so one of the things we see consistently from China is an effort to isolate Taiwan. That's why they try to bully, they try to entice, they try to coerce other nations to break ties. Part of the Taipei Act, I mentioned in my opening remarks that I'm a co-sponsor of the Taipei Act, which just passed the Senate Foreign Relations Committee unanimously. Part of the Taipei Act is for U.S. foreign policy to pursue how to encourage countries to maintain relationships with Taiwan and to discourage countries from ending those relationships. At the end of the day, I expect that to be a battle that is ongoing. As for your second question, I've commented on the question of Syria and the Kurds, and I am very concerned that we not abandon the Kurds to aggression from Turkey. At the same time, I want to keep the focus of this discussion on Taiwan and the issues here. So let me let my statements on that stand on their own and keep the focus on Taiwan.
Thank you, Senator. We have questions from Hong Kong TV and then followed by NDA. Yes. The gentleman, yes.
Voice of America.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yes. Voice of America, yes.
Senator, I have a question. I mean, you mentioned you have did a lot in the Congress to push past several acts into law in support Taiwan. But China is a powerful bullier. And do you have any intentions or you plan to do something to push the Congress to pass any laws in challenging China?
Well, when it comes to challenging China, there's a great deal we need to do, and then there's a great deal we are doing. I support President Trump's effort to get tougher on trade with China. I think as it concerns trade between the United States and China, I think right now China's policies are not fair and not on an even playing field with the United States. Every year China exports about $500 billion to the United States, and they import from America about $100 billion. That's not remotely fair or even. I think they employ a lot of non-tariff barriers to keep U.S. goods and services out of China. And I think the president is right to be leaning in and trying to open up those markets to further commerce. At the same time, the fact that we're engaged in commercial relationships with someone doesn't mean that we should be silent about human rights abuses. I believe everyone should demonstrate the courage to speak out and speak the truth, and I think America has a particular responsibility to be a voice for freedom. When you look at China's persecution of the Uyghurs, more than 1 million imprisoned, people being tortured and murdered, it is wrong. When you look at Tiananmen Square, a chapter in history the communist government in China would very much like the world to forget about, it illustrates the importance of standing up for human rights. In the Senate, several years ago, I introduced legislation and actually passed through the legislation through the Senate unanimously to rename the street in front of the Chinese embassy Liu Xiaobo Plaza, after the famed Nobel Peace Laureate that China was wrongfully imprisoning. And indeed, as a result of that legislation passing the Senate and leaning in, ultimately Liu Xiaobo passed away, but his widow Liu Xia was allowed to leave China. She was being held against her wishes, was allowed to leave. That's something I pressed very hard for. I think speaking out, providing sunlight, speaking truth is powerful. VOA does a wonderful job of that. Thank you for that. There is power. Darkness fears the light, and lies fear truth. And let me say, by the way, we're seeing this right now with regard to the NBA and the recent issue. Look, I'm a Houstonian. I am a diehard Houston Rockets fan. We saw just earlier this week the general manager of the Houston Rockets tweet out a relatively innocuous tweet saying, "Stand for freedom, stand with the people of Hong Kong." And I'm sure when he sent it out, he didn't think it would cause that much of a stir. Well, to the communist government in China, they reacted as if he'd set off a bomb. They reacted by immediately cutting off the Rockets' access to the Chinese market, cutting off sponsorships, cutting off access to the internet, cutting off access to the television market. Now, as everyone knows, the Chinese market is big bucks. That's a lot of dollars. And unfortunately, the way the NBA reacted was not a profile in courage. We saw instead repeated apologies, one after the other, for having done so. And it's not complicated to figure out what that was about. That's all about wanting to access the Chinese market. But I don't think the NBA, I don't think American companies should participate in Chinese censorship, because what their objective is not to have anyone dare to speak up criticism about their oppression. I think we have an obligation to speak the truth. And that's an obligation that Taiwan takes very, very seriously, and it's one of the reasons I'm so proud to be here.
Thank you very much, Senator, and thanks for the question from BOA. We have a question from United News.
Hi, this is Mark from United Daily. I have a question for Senator. I think Taiwan is capable and willing to play a bigger and meaningful role in the Indo-Pacific region, and I think that role is compatible to the U.S. policy and interest. And I mean, when I say bigger and more meaningful, I meant military cooperation with U.S. So is U.S. Senate, from your perspective, interested in making that a reality? If so, how? My next question is directed to Mr. Wu. 吴部长，针对一个国内的情势，不好意思，还是要请教您。我相信近来外交部非常积极的求好，想要表现出，然后让民众了解到说台日友好和台美友好的关系。但是我相信Senator Cruz 的来访也是一个 testament。但我只是疑问说，像日本福冈分处这个核电的事件，是不是一个太过求好心切的案例？那院长已经只是要查处了，请问部长有没有亲自关心现在查处的进度？谢谢。
I'll let Minister Wu answer the second question.
Very good.
But absolutely, yes, I would like to see enhanced military cooperation between Taiwan and the United States. It's one of the reasons I've so long advocated selling more advanced F-16 fighter jets. I'm glad to see that moving forward. It's also a reason I've advocated Taiwan's participating in RIMPAC, the military exercises in the Pacific, because it is not difficult to imagine scenarios in which the Taiwan military and our allies would be working together to defend our shared interest. And I would very much like to see Taiwan participate in RIMPAC. I hope that comes to pass.
And concerning the question for me, it's about a newspaper that is being very critical of the government. And for that particular matter, our spokesperson has already answered the question this afternoon. But I want to put it on the record that we allow press freedom in Taiwan, and that makes a difference in between Taiwan and China. We have 100% media freedom, and our media freedom ranks on the top in Asia, and we are very proud of that. And very often we say that, I don't agree with you, but I can tell you that I will sacrifice myself to protect your rights to write stories. I will sacrifice myself to protect the right to criticize me. So this is the fact of the matter in Taiwan. Taiwan is so free that all the media can write anything, and that is something typical to Taiwan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both Minister and Senator. And I know we have questions from the back. Sorry, yes, okay, from the back. I can't see your face, so can you identify your name, your name and your media affiliation, please, sir? Thank you.
Thank you, Mofa. Thank you, Mr. Senator, for taking my question. This is Dajing Wu for the Associated Press.
Associated Press. Okay.
Yes, Associated Press. I just have one question. I would like to know your stance on Taiwan's politics. Do you support a re-election for Madam Tsai Ing-wen?
Because I believe in democracy and because I believe in sovereignty, that's a question for the people of Taiwan to make. I will happily work with the elected leadership of Taiwan, whomever that may be, because it is Taiwan and America that are allies and friends, and I also would not purport to tell the people of Taiwan for whom to vote any more than I would expect the people of Taiwan to tell Americans for whom to vote. That's the essence of being a democracy, is making an informed choice about what is right for your nation.
Thank you very much, Senator. I know we have questions. Your Apple Daily News, yes, Jianyu. Okay. And then from there, maybe Yishan.
Wait.
No.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay. Yes.
I'm Chen Yu from the Apple Daily. And I have one question for you. Talking about if you're aware that we have a election in the next year, and are you concerned by any candidate who are more friendly to China? Because you are very anti-communist, and if there is a pro-China candidate in the next year, are you concerned about that?
As I said, I'm not going to try to insert myself into the Taiwanese elections. You know, I will say when President Tsai came to the United States and came to Texas, came to my hometown of Houston, and I had a meeting scheduled with her. And the Communist Party of China, the government sent me a letter, a very stern letter, demanding that I cancel the meeting. And I will confess I had great fun responding to that letter and pointing out to the Chinese government that I don't try to tell them with whom they can meet, and they sure as hell can't tell me with whom I'm going to meet. And that America's commitment is to Taiwan and the Taiwanese people, and that is enduring. And what is good news, that is also bipartisan. There are many political fights here. There are many political fights in America. Those will continue. That's part of the democratic process. But the friendship and alliance between our nations is long-standing, and I'm confident will continue for many, many years to come.
Thank you very much. Okay, due to the time constraint, we're so grateful for Senator's time and also for the presence of our minister. And also thank you once again to our senator for the strength, your words, your action that you have really greatly inspired us. So we want to thank you also on behalf of the media, and thank you to you all for making your time, making it tonight. Thank you very much, Senator. Thank you, Minister.